The used car apocalypse is here. 5 million vehicles are about to flood the US market. And if you're planning to buy or sell a car in the next year, this tsunami of inventory will either make you rich or financially destroy you. Right now, while you're watching this video, rental car companies are dumping fleet vehicles faster than a casino dealer shuffles cards. Lease returns are piling up like autumn leaves. And repossessed vehicles? They're hitting auction lots at a rate of 18,000 per day, not per month, per day. Meet David, a contractor from Phoenix who thought he was playing it smart by waiting for used car prices to crash. In just 5 weeks, he watched a 2021 Ford F-150 plunge from $42,000 to $34,000. And he still has no clue what's really fueling this price collapse. Behind this tidal wave sits a financial time bomb set off by the greedy car companies, trapping hardworking Americans who played by the rules. This flood won't just change car prices, it'll split people into winners and losers overnight. The question isn't if 5 million cars will hit the market, it's whether you can survive what happens next. David wakes before sunrise, thumb scrolling through listings, eyes fixed on the numbers. The 2021 Ford F-150 he's tracked for months started at $42,000. By the second week, it's $38,000. 5 weeks in, the price slips to $34,000. The change isn't subtle. It's a relentless slide, week after week, as if gravity itself has taken hold of the market. Trucks that would have vanished from lots in hours now linger for months. Their windshields are crowded with red tags and hand-lettered markdowns, each sticker more desperate than the last. It's not just the Ford. Across Phoenix, the story repeats. A Chevy Silverado drops $7,500 in 3 weeks. Used Camrys lose $2,000 between Monday and Friday. Dealers slash prices, then slash again, but the lots stay full. The numbers are stark. Dealer inventory has surged by 55% in the past year, adding over 1 million extra cars to the market. Some vehicles have been parked for more than 400 days, their paint dulled by sun and dust, their value shrinking by the hour. Even the deepest discounts, $10,000, $20,000, sometimes more, can't pull buyers off the sidelines. The familiar rhythm of depreciation, steady, predictable, has been replaced by chaos. The old rules no longer apply. Last spring, buyers lined up to pay above sticker, sometimes offering thousands more just to drive away. Now, the tide is turned. Dealers can't move cars fast enough. Each week brings a new flood. More than 50,000 off-lease vehicles, up to 30,000 ex-rental cars, and over 100,000 repossessed units pour onto lots and auction blocks. The market absorbs this tidal wave, but prices buckle under the weight. For families like David's, the ground keeps shifting. Waiting used to mean leverage. Every drop in price felt like progress, a step closer to a bargain. But as the weeks drag on, the certainty fades. The bottom keeps falling away. He wonders if he's chasing a deal that will never land, or if he's just watching his chance slip further out of reach. He's not the only one. Buyers across the country freeze, holding out for the next markdown, while sellers panic. Dealers walk the rows of unsold cars, counting losses, watching as values erode day by day. This isn't a local blip or a bad month for sales. It's a nationwide freefall. The numbers get worse with each passing week, and the sense of control, once taken for granted, has vanished. The market David thought he understood has become unrecognizable, ruled by forces no one seems able to stop. David's phone buzzes with another lender email. The headline screams, "Pre-approval," but the fine print tells a different story. Last year, a $34,000 truck came with a 4.9% interest rate and a handshake. Now, the same loan demands 7.5%, if he can even get approved. Banks, spooked by the collapse in used car values, have slammed the brakes on easy money. They want 20% down, sometimes more. For David, that's nearly $7,000 upfront. just to drive a truck that might be worth less tomorrow than it is today. This isn't just sticker shock. It's a squeeze from every angle. Lenders are calling the shots, tightening terms, and running credit checks with surgical precision. The days of zero-down deals and easy approvals are gone. Every new application feels like a test he's set up to fail. The monthly payment calculators tell one story: $615 now, maybe $495 if he waits. But the banks don't care about hope or patience. They care about risk. And right now, risk is everywhere. David's pay stubs show steady work: $6,200 a month from back-breaking construction jobs across Maricopa County. But the loan officers aren't interested in sweat. They want guarantees. With used car values dropping faster than ever, banks are terrified of getting stuck with a loan that's underwater before the ink dries. That means higher down payments, higher rates, and shorter approval windows. Miss a document, miss a deadline, and the offer vanishes. Try again next week, and the terms get worse. For families like David's, the dream of a bargain has turned into a maze of paperwork and moving goalposts. Every day he waits, the numbers change. Every call to the bank brings a new hurdle. He's not alone. Across the country, buyers are finding that the real cost of a used car isn't just the price on the windshield. It's the invisible wall built by lenders protecting themselves from the crash. The market is flooded with cars, but the lifeboats are getting smaller and the price of a seat keeps rising. David's patience, once his greatest asset, now feels like a trap. He wonders if he'll ever be able to buy, or if the only thing waiting at the end of this race is a pile of paperwork and a bill he can't afford. The stress is quiet but constant, a knot in his stomach that tightens every time the phone rings. The promise of a deal has been replaced by anxiety, and the American dream of driving home a new truck is slipping further out of reach with every passing week. Rental car giants, Enterprise, Hertz, and Avis, are offloading vehicles at a pace the market hasn't seen in decades. Their combined U.S. fleets now stand between 2.1 and 2.5 million vehicles, rebuilt after pandemic lows, but still trailing pre-2020 peaks. In just the first half of this year, 678,284 rental units were sold off, a 5.4% jump over last year's pace. That's more than 110,000 cars dumped each month, just from rental companies. But this is only the tip of the iceberg. Corporate and government fleets, pressured by aging vehicles and rising costs, have joined the exodus. Altogether, over 1.1 million fleet-origin vehicles hit wholesale channels in 6 months, nearly matching the entire annual output of some automakers. Auction houses are overwhelmed. At peak, up to 30,000 ex-rental cars roll into the wholesale lanes every week, flooding markets like Atlanta, Phoenix, and southern Florida with more cars than local dealers can absorb. Each batch is measured in hundreds, sometimes thousands, of identical sedans and SUVs. When Hertz decided to thin its fleet, one July morning saw 800 used SUVs dropped into the southern Florida market, slashing wholesale prices by 15% in 2 weeks. In Phoenix, a single week brought 400 retired electric vehicles from Hertz. Almost none found immediate buyers. The impact is brutal. Local prices spiral downward, and the shockwaves ripple out to neighboring states as dealers scramble to unload their own stock before values collapse even further. Fleet managers aren't waiting for the perfect moment. They're racing against time, forced by rising interest rates and mounting floor plan costs. The average hold period for a rental car has shortened back to 24 months, but surplus inventory, especially older, high-mileage, or unwanted models, gets dumped in bulk whenever financial pressure mounts. SEC filings show Hertz alone reported a U.S. fleet of around 420,000 vehicles this year, with a clear mandate to reduce exposure after disastrous bets on electric vehicles and pandemic-era debt. The numbers add up fast. By year's end, rental and corporate fleet disposals will account for nearly 2 million of the 5 million vehicles expected to hit the market. That's 35 to 40% of the entire flood. And these units aren't trickling in. They're arriving in waves, overwhelming dealer lots, auction blocks, and storage yards from Houston to Newark. For the average buyer, it's easy to underestimate what these numbers mean. But every time a rental company dumps 100 cars in one city, the local market buckles. Prices drop overnight. Dealers who just bought similar models at last month's auction are suddenly underwater. The losses aren't theoretical. They're measured in thousands of dollars per car, per week, as values plummet and carrying costs pile up. This is the scale of the offload. Millions of vehicles, dumped in bulk, with no safety net. It's not just a wave, it's a tsunami, and it's still gaining strength. Atlanta wakes up to a new kind of reality. On a humid Thursday, more than 600 ex-rental SUVs hit the auction block at once, every one of them with nearly identical specs, mileage, and a bright yellow tag. Within 2 weeks, wholesale prices in the region drop 15%. Dealers who bought inventory just days earlier are suddenly underwater, staring at losses that could wipe out a month's profits. The shock doesn't end in Georgia. The same week, Phoenix sees 400 retired electric vehicles dumped by a single rental company. Most sit untouched, gathering dust under the desert sun. Local prices for similar EVs fall 12% in a matter of days. And the ripple spreads to neighboring states as desperate sellers race to unload their own stock before the next wave hits. These aren't isolated events. The Southeast and Southwest have become dumping grounds for unwanted fleet vehicles, with batch sizes growing larger every month. In southern Florida, one July morning brings 800 used SUVs into the wholesale lanes. By the end of the week, dealers are slashing retail prices, sometimes by thousands, just to stay in the game. Local buyers, once eager, now wait for the next markdown. The result? Cars sit for months, their value melting away in the heat. Every time a rental giant unloads a batch, the local market buckles. Dealers who took delivery at last month's prices are left with inventory worth thousands less overnight. Some try to hold out, hoping for a rebound, but the flood of nearly identical cars makes recovery impossible. The financial math is brutal. Each unsold vehicle costs $800 to $1,200 a month just to sit on the lot. For smaller dealers, that's enough to push them to the brink. The hold period for rental cars has shrunk back to 24 months. But when demand slumps or interest rates threaten to rise, fleet managers dump surplus inventory in bulk. These mass offloads aren't spread evenly. They hit hardest in high-volume travel hubs in Sunbelt cities, where airport lots and regional depots can release hundreds of vehicles in a single week. The result is a series of local price crashes, each one deeper than the last. For families searching for a deal, the chaos is both a blessing and a curse. One week, a used Camry drops $2,000 in Atlanta. The next, a Chevy Tahoe in Dallas loses $4,500 overnight. But with so many cars flooding the same markets, buyers grow cautious, afraid that today's bargain will be tomorrow's regret. Sellers, meanwhile, watch their equity vanish, trapped in loans that no longer make sense. Regional price shocks aren't just statistics. They're the difference between a family affording a new ride or getting stuck with a financial anchor. In the Southeast and Southwest, the impact is felt on every block. Empty showrooms, desperate sales calls, and neighborhoods lined with unsold cars. The inventory dump isn't slowing down. If anything, the next batch is already on its way. Automakers spent 3 years selling a fantasy. When leasing exploded between 2020 and 2022, every contract came stamped with an optimistic promise. Your car will be worth $28,000, $32,000, even $40,000 at lease end. These numbers, called residual values, were supposed to protect everyone. The customer walks away or buys at a fair price. The dealer gets a steady stream of late-model cars, and the lender stays safe. But the math was built on sand. The pandemic turned used cars into gold. Dealers fought for every off-lease return, often offering to buy out contracts early, just to fill empty lots. Automakers, eager to keep sales rolling, set residuals sky high, sometimes 10 to 20% above historic averages. They bet prices would stay inflated forever. That bet has come due. Now, hundreds of thousands of 3-year leases are expiring each month. Instead of a windfall, dealers and finance companies are staring at a chasm. Off-lease vehicles that were supposed to fetch $30,000 are now worth $23,000, sometimes less. The gap isn't a rounding error. It's a $5,000, $7,000, even $10,000 loss per car, multiplied by millions of vehicles. Cynthia, a teacher in Kansas City, leased a sedan in 2021. Her contract promised she could buy it for $17,000 at lease end. Last week, the same model sold at auction for $12,400. Her lender refused to extend her lease or lower the buyout. She's forced to choose, pay thousands over market value, or walk away and start over in a market flooded with cars no one wants. Multiply Cynthia's dilemma by 2 million. That's the scale of the backlog. Dealers can't sell these cars at a profit. Lenders are eating losses on every unit, and the backlog keeps growing. Each week, another 50,000 off-lease vehicles hit the market, most worth far less than the spreadsheets predicted. This isn't just a forecasting error. It's a financial misfire that's trapping dealers and choking the used car pipeline. The fantasy of ever-rising values has collapsed, leaving real people, buyers, sellers, even the banks, holding the bag. And for every car that sits unsold, the pressure builds, turning dealer lots into graveyards, and the American dream of affordable wheels into a waiting game with no clear winner. Every week, the backlog on dealer lots grows heavier, pressing down on the entire system like a loaded spring. Off-lease returns, rental fleet cast-offs, and repossessions pour in at a rate that would have seemed impossible just a few years ago, over 200,000 vehicles a week by the latest industry estimates. That's not a typo. 55,000 off-lease vehicles, 126,000 repossessed cars, and up to 30,000 ex-rental units week after week. The lots fill, then overflow. Satellite images now reveal what industry insiders call car graveyards, acres of unsold vehicles, some still wrapped in shipping plastic, lined up bumper to bumper on the outskirts of Houston, Savannah, and Los Angeles. More than 400,000 unsold cars sit in just 3 of these storage compounds, their batteries draining and tires flattening as weeks turn into months. Dealers face a punishing math problem. Every unsold car costs between $800 and $1,200 a month in floor plan interest, insurance, and storage. For a lot with 200 vehicles, that's $250,000 lost every year just to keep the lights on. The longer the cars sit, the deeper the hole. Some luxury and electric models have languished for over 500 days, their value melting away with each sunrise. Price cuts of $10,000 or even $30,000 aren't enough to lure buyers off the sidelines. Instead, the backlog grows, and so does the desperation. The pressure isn't just financial, it's political. The National Automobile Dealers Association spent over $9 million on federal lobbying last year alone, pushing for interest relief and softer repossession laws. The 5 largest dealer groups chipped in another $2.5 million, flooding Congress with requests for regulatory breaks and tax adjustments. Behind closed doors, lobbyists argue that without relief, local dealerships, often family-run for generations, will disappear. Critics say the real goal is to slow down the price collapse and spread the pain to taxpayers and car owners. As the backlog chokes lots from coast to coast, the next wave is already forming. Dealers can't sell fast enough to keep up with the flood of arrivals. With every new truck, sedan, or SUV that rolls off a transporter, the risk of financial ruin grows. And in the shadows, lenders and repo agents are circling, waiting for the first sign that a dealer can't pay the bills. That's when the repo wave hits, and the fallout spreads far beyond the showroom floor. Nearly 4% of auto loans in America are now past due, the highest rate since the last recession. For subprime borrowers, the pain cuts even deeper. Nearly 1 in 10 with a credit score below 620 is behind on payments, staring down the barrel of repossession. It's not just a number on a spreadsheet. It's Miguel, an electrician in Cleveland, who bought a used Silverado in 2022 when overtime was easy and lenders barely asked for proof of income. The payments were steep, but the promise was simple. Keep working, keep the truck. Then the hours dried up. One missed paycheck turned into 2, and by the end of the month, the repo truck was idling outside his apartment. His Silverado vanished overnight, and with it, his ability to get to job sites across the city. Household income dropped from $5,900 to $3,200. Rent fell behind, and the phone calls from collectors started coming daily. Stories like Miguel's are multiplying. The subprime auto loan boom of 2021 and 2022, fueled by sky-high used car prices and 6 or even 7-year loans, has become a trap. Most of these buyers put little or nothing down. Many drove off the lot owing more than the car was worth from day one. Now, as values collapse, negative equity is everywhere. For every 10 subprime borrowers, almost 1 is late. For prime borrowers, the rate is much lower, but the stress is spreading as layoffs ripple through retail, construction, and logistics. The biggest risk isn't just losing a car, it's what happens next. When a loan goes bad, the timeline is brutal. Miss 2 payments, and the lender sends a recovery order. Within 3 months, the car is gone. In the best case, it fetches half its original value at auction. The rest of the balance? Still owed, now with late fees and legal threats. For families already living paycheck to paycheck, it's a financial death spiral. This surge in defaults is pushing wave after wave of repossessed vehicles into the system. Auction lots fill up with trucks and sedans from borrowers who never stood a chance against the math. It's not just the market that's flooded. It's the lives of working Americans, caught between falling wages, rising bills, and a credit system that sold them a dream and then slammed the door shut. Auction houses are drowning in repossessed vehicles. Every week, tens of thousands of cars, trucks, sedans, SUVs, are hauled in by the hour, crowding the lanes from Atlanta to Los Angeles. Repo units now make up as much as 20% of all auction inventory, a share not seen since the aftermath of the last recession. The pace is relentless. Up to 126,000 repossessed cars arrive every week, most from borrowers who bought at the peak and defaulted as prices cratered. Auctioneers shout through endless streams of VIN numbers, but the buyers can't keep up. Rows of nearly new vehicles, some less than 3 years old, are sold to the highest bidder, often for a fraction of their original loan balance. For lenders, the numbers are even uglier. The average recovery rate on a repossessed car has collapsed to just 30%. That means a truck repossessed for a $40,000 loan might bring in only $12,000 at auction. The rest, the unpaid balance, the fees, the losses, gets dumped back on families who already lost their cars. For the banks and finance companies, it's a bloodbath. Each week, hundreds of millions in bad debt are written off, fueling a spiral of tighter credit and harsher collection tactics. This isn't just a paperwork problem. Auction yards are overflowing, with some facilities forced to stack cars bumper to bumper, waiting for a slot on the block. In Houston, satellite images reveal acres of repossessed vehicles, row after row, stretching to the horizon. Storage lots fill so quickly that some auction houses have started turning away new arrivals or charging steep fees just to keep cars on site. The system was never built for this volume. The flood is overwhelming every link in the chain. Repo agents, transporters, auctioneers, and the dealers who used to snap up bargains with confidence. For working families, the consequences are devastating. Once a car is repossessed, the odds of recovery are slim, and the damage to credit can last for years. But the story doesn't end there. When these cars hit the auction block, they don't just depress prices, they drag down the value of every similar vehicle still on the road. The pain ripples outward, turning local price drops into a nationwide collapse. Meanwhile, the companies that made billions on easy loans and sky-high prices are scrambling to cut their losses, leaving ordinary Americans to pick up the pieces. This is the third force in the used car tsunami, an auction market so saturated with repossessions that even the professionals are sounding alarms. The supply shock isn't coming, it's already here, and it's rewriting the rules for everyone who thought they understood how cars hold their value in America. Dealerships love to talk about family values and hometown service, but behind the showroom glass, it's a different story. The real business isn't selling cars, it's borrowing money. Most lots run on floor plan financing, a system where every unsold car racks up interest like a running meter. For the average dealer, that means $30 a day per car just to keep vehicles parked and waiting. Multiply that by hundreds of cars sitting month after month, and the numbers get ugly fast. This isn't just a tough break for a few unlucky dealers. According to industry analysts, 67% of US dealerships are now in distress or have shut down since 2023. Rows of abandoned vehicles line former lots in the Midwest, the South, and even in major cities. The burden isn't just financial, it's political. The National Automobile Dealers Association spent over $9 million last year lobbying Congress, desperate for relief from rising interest rates and stricter repossession laws. The 5 biggest dealer groups threw in another $2.5 million, all to keep the rules tilted in their favor. While working families watch their savings evaporate, the industry's power players are fighting to offload their pain onto someone else. They want taxpayers to pick up the tab for their bad bets and reckless lending. Every unsold car, every day it sits, is a silent transfer of wealth, from the middle class to the boardroom. The system isn't broken by accident. It's designed this way, and the people paying the price are the ones who can least afford it. Cynthia stands in her driveway, lease paperwork in one hand, calculator in the other. 2 years ago, her sedan came with a promise: buy it at lease end for $17,000, or hand over the keys and walk away. Now, the market says her car is worth just $12,400. The numbers don't lie, a $4,600 shortfall, and the bank refuses to budge. No extensions, no lower buyout, just a deadline and a choice: pay thousands over market or start from scratch in a market drowning in excess. She's not alone. Across the country, families are waking up to the same math. The car that was supposed to be a safety net is now a financial trap. Dealers and lenders shrug. That's just the market. But for working Americans, it's a gut punch. The experts forecast that used car values could fall another 8 to 15% by next year, especially for models like Cynthia's. That means waiting could save money, but it could also erase what little equity is left. The industry wants you to freeze, to panic, to accept whatever terms they offer. But Cynthia isn't playing by their rules. She shops every lender, checks every auction listing, and refuses to sign until the numbers work for her, not the other way around. It's not about beating the system. It's about refusing to be crushed by it. For every family staring down a $4,600 loss, there's a lesson. Don't let the panic on Wall Street dictate your next move. You have more power than they want you to believe. By September 2025, more than 5 million used cars are sitting on US dealer lots, an inventory surge confirmed by industry reports and auction data. This unprecedented flood was set in motion by 3 converging forces: rental fleets offloading over 678,000 vehicles in the first half of the year, millions of lease returns priced above market value, and a repossession tally exceeding 2.3 million in 2024. Dealers now pay over $30 per car per day just to keep these vehicles parked, with nearly 67% reporting financial distress. While the evidence points to corporate decisions and market miscalculations as the root cause, The full extent of lobbying efforts and future price drops remains unclear. Many industry documents are still undisclosed. What is certain, the middle class faces the consequences, with car values falling and personal finances squeezed. As this wave continues, Americans are left to navigate a market shaped not by chance, but by the choices of those in power.